called head tanks because they're at the tallest point on our property. So all of our tanks, here they come. Hope no one's scared of dogs. Chili loves people. Yes. This is going great. Yeah, this is at the tallest point, and then all the water is gravity fed to the tanks that you'll see throughout our entire tour. To get the water up here, hi Pepper. There's Chili and Pepper and Parker's somewhere. All the water is gravity fed. To get the water up here, hi Parker, good morning. We have two pipes. They go, oh, here's the kelp truck. All the distractions at one time. But so all that kelp was wild harvested in the Santa Barbara Channel yesterday. Kelp's here. It takes a while to offload, so they got to get everybody to come help offload it. But so it's harvested off Naples yesterday, which is just the tiniest bit south of here, and then kept on our kelp cutter boat overnight, and then this morning they used the cranes at the harbor to move them from the boat to that big truck, and then we have a crane here as well to move them from the truck to just big trailers, and then we wheelbarrow it around to all the tanks. So it's very hands-on process. All the puppies are going to go help with the offloading, or maybe Parker will just hang out with us. He does that sometimes. Yeah.
How long did what load last?
So the loads are kind of variable based on a lot of things, but generally I would say a load is anywhere between 6 to 10 tons, and that's enough to feed half the farm for 1 week. So each week we feed 16 to 20 tons of kelp out, all by hand, and that is across 2 to 3 days, depending on when the kelp gets in the day. It takes a team of 8 the full day just to feed every abalone here. We have over 1 million abalone on site, and that's starting counting after they're 2 years old. So we have 1 million abalone over 2 years old, and we don't even have numbers for how many we have in the hatchery or the intermediates. Many. But yeah, to get the water to these, there's 2 pipes that go 400 yards out, and they're 40 feet deep in the channel. Being that deep does a couple things for us. If there's any sort of like surface pollutants, those aren't going directly into our tanks. It also keeps the water a little bit cooler because of that depth. And then it also creates a natural pressure gradient that pushes the water. Tino, go ahead.
Get your butt over here.
Yeah, that wasn't even an angry honk. They get angry. But yeah, being that deep also creates a natural pressure gradient that pushes the water up to the beach. And then at the beach we have that big pump house that pumps all the water up to this point. So that is the short of it for how we get our water here. We don't do any sort of filtration. There's only just a big mesh screen on the outside, but we don't have like filters that we have to change up here. So we run what's called raw seawater. So you guys will see a lot of different animals today. You won't just see abalone. We get a lot of mussels, sea anemones, different kinds of sea slugs. Anything that has a planktonic larval phase has a chance at landing in our tanks. Parker, you just met her. Sorry about him. Yeah, any questions about our seawater?
I'll just follow up and say that, so we'll see, at our next stop, we'll see both raw and the filtered seawater system.
Oh, cool.
1, 2, and I'd say, well, I think mostly people will think about, we talk about the management issues here, like the logistics of the finding affordable land in the coastal zone and all this and that. But I would say probably the biggest problems for these guys are power to run all these pumps and the seawater intakes. So that's the biggest, huge hurdle that we have. And California does not like to permit new seawater intakes. Even though you'd think that, this is making food and this is more sustainable, our wild hog populations are stressed. The agencies that permit the seawater intakes don't really care about that shit, right? They're like, nope, and they'd rather see no seawater at all. Also, the seawater intakes usually means a discharge pipe. So you also have to have an ocean discharge permit. And also, we don't like to give those out. And so you can't have everything, right? You can't have like a working farm and no ability to get seawater in and no ability to release that seawater. So it all kind of goes hand in hand. But as farms have closed over the last few years, one of the biggest losses is if that intake pump goes quiet for a long time. Either logistically you have to replace all the physical parts, but then also the permit might lapse. And it's one thing to continue a permit, it's almost impossible to get a new one. So that's a huge resource that these guys have that has been going on for decades, that if they weren't here and you decided what a brilliant idea to start an abalone farm here, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's extremely, extremely difficult to get that key part of the infrastructure for the farm.
Yeah, for sure.
Why don't
Yeah, these are them as well. Abalone can stay out of the water for a period of time. That's why when we put this turf on the edge, it's kind of which is what we call the intermediates. So typically at about 3 to 6 months, they are large enough to where it would be safe to move them from the hatchery to out here. To move them out, they're too small for us to go through and like scoop everybody off. So instead what we'll do is just drain the tank. We do it very slowly so they don't go down the drain. And then we just carry the entire tank out here and set it back up. So you guys will see the next tanks we look at are the exact same as the ones we just looked at because they are the exact same. They were in there, they moved here, and then we have a big cleaning process because in there they're on that filtered seawater, which you guys probably saw a couple more animals than we would prefer in there. It seems like we need a new filter. But out here they're on completely raw seawater, so you'll see a lot of these worms that have a shell. They're called spiorbid worms. And then we also get a lot of tunicates, filter feeding animals, and sea slugs, which aren't an issue, but the sabellids and the tunicates we have to scrape off before we put them back, those tanks back in there, because those disrupt the space that the abalone are able to settle onto, because if there's another animal there and it's not like a plate, then they won't be able to settle in that area. So it's a big cleaning project. When we move them out here, these are really the biggest changes. So they go from that filtered water to raw seawater. They're now under the sunlight when there is sunlight. And then we switch them over to red seaweed. Our red seaweed we grow here. We grow 2 different types, Odo and Dulce. Odo grows best in the summer, likes warm water, lots of sunlight. Dulce grows best in the winter, kind of like shorter days, colder water. And we just alternate those 2 for what we feed here. It's whatever we have extra of from our seaweed production. When we head into this section, you guys are welcome to put your hands in this tanks. Those little tiles that are in there, the little triangles, are just bathroom tiles that are cut in half. And they're not glued in any way. You can just pick them up. And then I would encourage you to flip them over, because most of the abalone are hiding out on the back sides of the plates. And when we do that, just make sure you hold them over the tank instead of over the ground, because they are way faster than they look. And so I'd rather than just go right back into the tank. Yeah, I'll kind of bop around. We also have been seeing a lot of lion's mane nudibranchs, these yellow sea slugs that are just like very gelatinous looking. So if you see something that looks like that, feel free to call it out so everyone can see it. It's pretty fun. See?